we can hear.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so as you know, we are in the month of September, and a gate will be at its usual time in the first and second week of February. So first of all, fill your gate forms, register and fill before the last date, or you might be facing some difficulties. And talking about the preparation after that, so I want to focus on more about like how things you should do from now. I did the similar seminar earlier also, but a lot of students don't start their preparation till this point, or there might be some other issues also. So I want to talk about how you should deal with that going forward, because if you are running the strategy that was valid in June or July, then you might be going slow. But I mean, at the same time, like if you have already prepared some subjects, if you are in the middle of the preparation, you can take a few pointers to how to manage your time effectively going ahead. So we have 4.5 months if we account for the month of September also. And January, like I never count January as a month of preparation because I consider it as a month of revision. Entirely, this should be your month of revision. But if you have delayed your preparation, then also go for 10 to 15 days of January for, I mean, you can push your preparation till that point, but don't do it after that because you have a lot to revise, and you might be worried about some topic that is like that some special topic is there, or let's say beam column in steel, or let's say slabs in case of RCC. So these are, I mean, these are, I won't say they are not required, but you need to prioritize. Gate preparation, it does not work unless you prioritize things. So prioritization is a very important aspect of gate. So first of all, let's say, I mean, if we cover the point of how to prepare going ahead from this point of September 11th, what should your strategy be? So as I said, we need to prioritize. So if you are not aware, gate is very like repetitive in the way they ask questions from certain subjects. So you know there is specific weightage for maths and aptitude, both make 13 plus 15 marks. So both cover 28 marks for you. So these, I mean, I know a lot of students, I have seen my friends also do that in the past. These become the last priority subject, but you see they are covering almost 30% of the weightage. So this is your top priority. Because these subjects are non-technical, don't think that they have to be studied at the last. Especially maths, don't leave it for the month of January or December. If you haven't done it, you should work on this subject right now so that you will have some more time for the revision of this. Because these 28 marks out of at least 28, you should be getting 25 easily. It shouldn't be that difficult. If you, I mean, let's say if you are giving the same time to some subject like SOM or fluid, then you will get maybe 4 marks out of that. But if you are giving about 10 to 15 days for maths, you can get 13 marks out of that. Similarly, aptitude won't even take that long. If you have given at max 10 days, you can, out of 15, at least you can get 13 marks. So that is the importance of these two subjects. So these are your top priority subjects. Then after that, we have 3 or 4 more subjects, that is soil, environment, transport, fluid. So these, I would say, the top four. And two, I mean, out of these four, for soil and fluid, you need some understanding of SOM. So SOM and mechanics, these are the fundamental blocks. I mean, this subject especially is the fundamental block of civil engineering. And in GATE also, unless you have this subject cleared, you will find it difficult. Like I see students asking doubts from steel, and this doubt would be something that should have been cleared in SOM. Similarly, from RCC, if someone is asking how is the shear stress this much in this part or something like that, then these are the doubts that should be cleared in SOAM. Similarly, someone will ask like, how is there a torsion in this kind of loading? Why is there a torsion? Or if there is torsion, why is there shear stress? These kind of questions, they are not RCC questions or they are not steel questions. These are SOAM and mechanics questions. So make sure it's at least if you're targeting subjects like RCC, steel structures, then make sure that you have covered SOAM before that. Otherwise, you will face difficulty. In case of soil, to understand shear strength better and anything beyond that point, it is helpful to know SOAM. Similarly, in fluid, to understand pressure like hydrostatic pressure and how the stress works generally in hydrostatic stress. So these parts you will understand better if you are familiar with SOAM. Transportation is, I mean, all most of it is free from SOAM. Only in the rigid pavement design, you might need some understanding, but that you can manage. So, I mean, even though questions are not asked from SOAM, just keep that in mind that you will be time and again you will be facing some concept that will be coming from SOAM or mechanics. So keep that in mind. If you have already studied it, it's good. You can focus on these subjects. Make sure you have covered these subjects before you move on to other topics. Now, in these subjects also, I mean, these are equally important. You can't say one or the other. Yeah, but fluid, sometimes it can be too big. So make sure you cover the fluid statics part to understand the basics of fluid mechanics, fluid statics, dynamics, pipe flow, and open channel flow. I mean, even if you are not doing other topics, you should at least be doing open channel flow in fluid. So I was telling like these are your top priority subjects. Like I told 6 topics by now. So maths, aptitude, then soil, environment, transport, and fluid. These are making 6 subjects, and so for the fundamentals. Now you need to put a time constraint also in all of your preparation. You cannot be like, I'm gonna spend 20 days in studying SOAM or 20 days in studying soil. You don't have that sort of choice at this point. So if you have not, I mean, unless you have already covered the remaining subjects. So remaining we have hydrology and irrigation. Then surveying is there, construction management, materials and management. So these are the major topics that you have. Now, I would say that set an upper limit of 10 days for most subject. I'm sure like you will have difficulty if you have not covered maths. It will be difficult to do in 10 days. But for most subjects, you should set an upper limit of 10 days. For a few subjects that you think you cannot do in 10 days, set an upper limit of 15 days. These margins will keep slowing. I mean, these margins will again start to go down as we go in the months of October and November. So if like whatever I'm talking, this is also not convincing you to start your preparation, then again like you will be missing out on topics after. If you are not starting now or if you are not being sincere at this point, then you will just need to drop the topics after this. So at this point you have like 4 months, so that is 120 days. And so I mean, GATE Civil has about 13 topics. So some are big, some are small. So even if let's say you are doing 10 days per topic, including the revision, then also you will be leaving one topic going forward from this point. And we don't have that much time. So I would say that you take your preparation sincerely. So I was on the point that set an upper limit on any topic. Don't spend more than that time. for preparation, and then how do you go for each subject? That is my next point here. So this was a point about prioritization and how you should spend, I mean, how much time you can allocate to that subject. Now let's talk about the how you should be studying a subject. So let's say you picked soil. Now, if you are in March or April, something like that, then I would say, okay, you watch a video, make your detailed notes. After that, solve some questions, and then move on to the next subject and revise it after a few days. But at this point, this should not be your strategy. Let's say you are studying from video lectures, then, or let's say you're referring to some books also. Books are not great. I've mentioned that because you will always need to figure out which topics you should study and which topics you should skip. So at this point, books are not preferable as a main source of your preparation. You can refer to books for looking into specific topic or specific question. So I'm just gonna write videos. You can put whatever means of preparation you are using. So yeah, let's say you have started watching video of soil chapter 1. Then what is the next step? The next step is not to make detailed notes of that. Once you have understood the concept from these videos, if you have understood the concepts, directly jump to solving the previous year questions. So you don't want to be in a place that January is over and you have still not solved the previous year questions of GATE. So that brings the previous year questions to the priority. Look into the videos, understand the concepts, and directly solve the questions. And what about the notes? So you don't have the luxury to make detailed notes at this point. So you will need to, I mean, if you have made some, it's great, but you will still need some kind of short notes. With short notes, I mean something that you can revise the entire, let's say, entire civil syllabus. You should be able to revise within 3 to 4 hours. So you need to put this sort of constraint that these are the size of notes that you can afford at this point. So for soil, if you are making short notes, in the first few chapter, there would be just formula. So you can write these formula. If there are some assumptions involved, so you can write the assumptions also. These would be making the primary part of your like note making, the basic short notes making. Beyond this, if you have, like, sometimes theoretical questions are asked, and in that someone is picking a tricky part, let's say something from shrinkage limit. So something that you will not find in your book, but it's a statement or it's a concept that you learned from a question. So you can write such points also in your short notes. That would be helpful for you at the later point. So this is what you will do after solving the questions. Don't do it before solving the questions, because once you have solved question, you will have more data that this is what I'm missing in my understanding. So it will help you make better notes also and save time, because you won't have this much time to do, I mean, make detailed notes. So once you have, what is the step after solving PYQs? So you will be solving PYQs topic wise. So finish solving PYQs for each topic. And once you have done that for the entire subject, the next step is to attempt the test. Yes, so it's not like you will delay these tests for December or January. That is a bad way of preparation. You should totally avoid that. So you can, once you have solved it, I mean, understood the concepts, solved the PYQs, made super short notes, directly jump into giving the test for that subject. So subject wise test you can give at this point. I'm not talking about the full length test, and that will help you in understanding what happens in the, like, even though you might be able to solve these PYQs easily, when you are targeting each topic, you might be able to solve. But when the entire subject comes in front of you at once, there might be issues that you are not aware of, and it will only show up when you try to give a test. So for that, it is important. There are many skills involved in like what you need to learn from test giving. So managing your time, that comes at the top. It's not like you can spend like 10 minutes, 15 minutes on just one question. So you need to keep that in mind. What is the upper limit that you can give to a question? If you are reading a question and you don't know like clearly from which part it is being asked or what is the concept behind it, then at that point you just mark it for review and move ahead. Don't try to think of what it is at that point. First, I mean, you can run through the whole test 2 3 times. In the first run, you should only target the questions that you know for sure that you will do. In the second run, you can go a bit further step and see that these are the potential questions. If I try to solve, I will be able to do something. So that should be your priority in the second run. But in the first run, just do the questions that you can look at it and solve. And similarly, then slowly you can move forward and increase the number of questions. So time management is one thing. Then there will be a lot of, I mean, if not lot, there will be some questions that you will only encounter, the kind of concept that you will only encounter through these tests. If you are just studying your notes, you will not be encountering these concepts. So for that also tests are important. Once you understand like this kind of question is asked in gate, or this is how you generally solve it, these are the approaches, then you will be able to solve it in the exam also. So these are the few things. And you will be making silly mistakes like you know the formula and you still applied the wrong formula. That kind of silly mistake is always possible. And similarly, you knew the answer, you just clicked on something else. That is also, such things actually happen in the gate exam. These are not things that you will just do here. And even after doing this much, whatever I'm telling, there will be a lot of students who will be making all these same mistakes year after year. It's not something that just happened 5 years ago to a few students. These are the things that take place every year. So make sure when you're giving tests, you categorize your mistakes in these ways. That is it a silly mistake, is it a concept that I didn't know, or how well did I manage the time, did I spend way too much time on a question? So these kind of things you will need to mark from your tests. So that would be the importance, I mean, that is what you will need to take from the test when you give these tests. Yeah, so in the preparation part, I was talking about how to cover each subject. So the basic formula is you understand the concepts from wherever you are studying, solve the PYQs, give the make short notes at this point. Super short notes, it shouldn't take you a long time. In the same day, it should be possible for that topic. And after that, once you finish the entire subject, then you attempt the test. So this is your way of covering one topic. Now, if I talk about the revision of subjects, so for most subjects, at least in GATE, you need to revise again through solving questions only. You are not supposed to be revising by just studying your notes. Notes are good. You will be using these notes just before you are trying to appear in a test. You go through your notes and then you give the test. Understand what you missed in that test. Make a note of that also. But in the name of revision, don't spend 3 4 days or a week just reading your notes. This is not the way to revise at all at this point. So in the name of revision, you're supposed to solve questions. Now, questions, it's not always, I mean, it's not necessary that you always give a test. You can solve, like we have a question bank. And similarly, if you have questions from IAS, so IAS has previous year questions. So these questions you can solve from question bank. If you have from any other coaching or whatever material you have. If you have booklet, you can refer to those questions. So that's your way of revising that subject instead of spending way too much time in reading notes. So what will happen this way? Once you attempt the questions, there will always be some difficulties. First, you will try to figure out how to solve that question. If you are not able to do that, you will either check the solution, and if it is there in the solution, you'll understand, or you will check your notes. So when you go by trying to solve that question and then you check, like even if you're checking the concept, then it helps in the better retention. So if you're just reading your notes, your brain will just take it as a noise. You will tell yourself, I know this topics, I don't need to read this again. So you will not be utilizing the depth of that particular line or the particular concept. So to do that, first you need to solve questions. So in the revision, when you do solve questions and after that understand what you were missing, and then look into the notes, or if you are finding something new, that some new concept you find, then make a note of that, that this was the new concept that I did not know. So just write it down somewhere, and next time try to avoid that mistake. Now, one while you solve question from any source, even solving PYQs, there is one common mistake that students make is that read one questions, read one question, try to solve it, and then check its solution. This is not how exam works, right? In GATE, it will not be like you will solve question number one and then check its answer from behind the sheet or something. That's not how exams work. So you should be avoiding that while you're solving questions also. So for that, at least 10 questions, target like 8 to 10 questions, solve them at once, and only after that check the solution. Don't check solution for each question. Otherwise, you will not, you will think, I know this, I could just not think or something like that. So you'll make some useless excuse to yourself, and that will not be helpful. So that way you are supposed to revise. Now, when you should revise, so let's say you finished studying soil. Today is Sunday, so let's say you finish studying on next Sunday. So on 18th you finished studying soil. Now, at least after, at max after 15 days, that is 2 weeks later, you are supposed to solve some questions for this. So if you delay it further, then unless you have studied this topic in the past, you will start forgetting the details of it. So there are two ways to do this thing, the whole revision part. Either, let's say, like after 15 days, you will say, okay, after 15 days will mean that sometime, on October 3rd onwards or something. So from here, you will say, now I'm gonna give soil 1 hour each day. 1 hour each day, and that will be your revision. It will not go from October till January, but let's say for the next 5 days. So for the next 5 days from October 3rd, I will be giving 1 hour for soil. So you will be able to revise these topics for 5 days or 7 days, whatever your capacity is based on that. So you will do that, and meanwhile you will be studying another topic at this point, so that will be carried forward to another 2 weeks later. So that way you can do, or you can be like, you can give entirely 1 or 2 days for the revision also. That would mean that October 3rd and 4th, these 2 days you will just study soil. So either of the way, whatever works better for you, if you can combine with other subjects, if that works, that's fine. If it doesn't work, then you can allocate 1 or 2 days entirely for the revision part. But don't spend way too much time in this, because again, you don't have the luxury of time. That is the main reason here. So you need to optimize on these parts. Now the common mistakes. So common mistakes, even though whatever points I've covered, I've talked about the common mistakes already, but let me emphasize these again. First common mistake, studying some topic that is like 4-5% weightage, or spending a month on structural analysis. That is a classic. Structural analysis, I mean, it's an aspirational subject for every civil student, but it does not lead to that. I mean, in the proportional amount, it does not give you the results. So at this point, you cannot spend that much time for structural analysis. If you have already studied this subject, then yes, you should allocate some time to solve questions. This subject is like maths, so there is only one way to get a mastery over it, is to solve questions. So if you already know, then solve question, but don't spend something like 15-20 days on any topic. I'm not even talking about structures or anything in particular. Don't spend more than this time on any topic, because you don't have that much time. If you are starting now, it is not applicable to those who have already studied. So they have a bit more luxury, at least till October or November mid, then they will need to change the gears. But if you are starting now, or if you have just started recently, then don't spend more than 15 days on any topic. If you are, so I mean, what will happen? So in 15 days, let's say you are not able to cover the entire subject, but in each subject also there is some priority. Let's say if I mentioned about fluid earlier. So again, if I mention about soil, I mean, I talk about soil. Then in case of soil, the topic of effective stress, then shear strength, then earth pressure, all the both the foundation topics. So if you talk about the importance of these topics, it will be way more than the other topics in soil, even though soil is a huge subject. So there are questions from each topic, but you will find questions from foundation almost every year, question from earth pressure almost every year. So in these 15 days, let's say if you're not able to finish the entire subject, then look what are the priority topics in that subject and aim for those. So that way you can utilize that time effectively, and you will not need to spend more than this time also. And if you have later more time available, you can cover the remaining topics. Yeah, then another mistake, let's say you are solving questions on your own. You have studied the topic. During the revision, you are solving questions. Now you got stuck on one question and you spend entire day. You spend entire day solving that, or you even spend, let's say, 2 hours solving one question. It's not worth that. Any question is not worth 2 hours for you. I mean, if it is taking 2 hours for you to solve that question, that means there is some fundamental lack in the knowledge of that concept. So it is not worth. And how does that concept get better if you're not solving it right away? So if you solve other questions also, instead of spending this much time in one question, if you solve question from other topics, from other subjects, and you come back to this topic a month later or 15 days later, I'm pretty sure you will be able to solve it, because initially your brain would not be open to that many kind of questions. And once you have attempted a variety of questions, you will be knowing better. I mean, you will be finding more ways to approach to a question. So initially, especially, don't spend too much time on questions. You will reach a point where you will be able to figure out what was missing, or what you should know to solve that question. But that doesn't happen initially. Like if I give you example of SOM, so what will happen if you are solving questions from, let's say, bending stress, and you don't know, at this point you don't know about deflection. So there will be many questions, these are all intermingled. There will be many questions where they are talking about bending stress, but you can't find it unless you know deflection. So sometimes you will understand that sort of correlation directly. Sometimes you will not see that. You won't understand what I must know to understand this particular question. So in such case, either reach out to me, like if you are taking our course, then you can reach out to me, or just move on from that topic for now. And once you have gone through the entire subject, you will be able to face it or solve it in a better way. So don't spend too much time on an individual question. At least aim for 20 questions a day, 20 good questions when you're revising. So something like that you must target, and that will help you in revision. One question, some specific question, if you are not able to solve, it does not limit your preparation. But if you're wasting time, that will definitely limit. So that is the point number two. Then the other parts I mentioned earlier, like not giving tests. If you are waiting that I will only give tests later at some point, so that will also limit, because you will not understand. As I said, there are many things that you will not figure out unless you have attempted tests. So tests are very important to understand or to figure out your time management, to learn that how you can avoid those silly mistakes, because once you start giving, you will definitely be making those mistakes. And then we have the use of calculator also. So probably till this point you will be using your regular Casio calculator, but that won't be helpful in the exam. So you will need some practice with the the on-screen calculator also. Not revising or not leaving any time for revision in January. No revision in January. So last year also I had students who were studying fresh topics till 31st January. Now, this is a deadly scenario. This should not happen, because at that time, it's hard for me to give suggestion also at that point, because in my head, the priority is to strengthen the topics that you already know, and instead of trying to learn a new topic. So avoid that situation as much as possible. Finish your subjects before that. Especially, that's why I've mentioned the priority topics here. Finish these topics for sure, because you don't want to leave them for January. If you are studying surveying, I would not suggest at the end of the January, but if you're studying subjects like irrigation hydrology in January, then also you can quickly do, but not these major subjects. The next point, that leaving small topics entirely or leaving any subject entirely. So you might be in a place where you are like, I'm not able to finish the, and here also I focus more on the priority subject. So you are like, I'm not gonna study surveying, or I'm not gonna study construction management, or I'm not gonna study irrigation. So that's also a deadly mistake, because even let's say you are not able to do the entire subject, check the PYQs. Check the PYQs of these topics. You will see that a lot of topics are just repeated and a lot of questions are repeated. So make sure you solve the easy ones. So the GATE is not some absolute exam, even though you are supposed to score out of 100, but if you are scoring 90 marks and 10,000 students are scoring above 95, then your 90 marks are useless. Similarly, if you are scoring 40 marks and 10,000 students are only scoring below 38 marks, then your 40 marks are gold. So you need to understand this part, that there will be some questions that everyone will be able to solve, or majority, whatever your competition is, that competition will be able to solve these easy questions. So in any topic, in any subject, you shouldn't miss out on the easy questions, because Here you are not giving this exam alone. There will be around 1 lakh students who will be giving the exam. So make sure you are able to solve the easy question, because easy question is easy for everyone, but difficult question at the same time is difficult for everyone. So even if you are missing a difficult question, it will not affect your rank as much as an easy question. So this is a mistake that you should try to avoid. Then another, I mean, I've already covered, but sometimes I said like understand the concepts and then solve the questions. Now, some of you would have been preparing more than once, so you might be thinking that you already know the concepts. It is difficult also, I totally understand, because you do understand the concepts, but what happens is over time you will start missing the small details of these concepts. So a lot of students, they will start solving the questions directly. You pick a subject and directly start solving questions without any revision. So that's also a problem. In that case, what happens is you do a lot more mistakes, which are totally avoidable if you just give at least like a day or half a day in revising the concepts of that topic. So don't do that also. I mean, unless you have done that already, if you have studied the subject and then you are just jumping onto the question, that is fine. But if it has been like, let's say 3 months or more than 3 months and you are trying to solve the questions directly, then you will face more difficulties. So it's better to revise a subject at least for a day. Yeah, so these are all the points from my side. So let me repeat these again. So in the first part, in the how to prepare part, I mentioned that first of all, prioritize. So I mentioned these topics. These are your first of all maths, aptitude. These are top two. Then going onward, these are your topics. I don't remember the exact weightage of these, but it's almost equal. Fluid is a little less, but soil, environment, transport, these are the major topics from the technical part. And how to study these topics. So I mentioned that start from the start from the concepts from whatever source you're using. Start from the concept, jump to the PYQs, because you don't want to miss these. I mean, you don't want to give GATE 2023 without solving previous year questions. So don't skip that part. And once you finish the subject, attempt the tests and set an upper limit to the number of days you will be giving to each topic. So for small topics, it should not be actually more than 5 days. But if you are facing difficulty, then push it to 7. So for small topics like these, don't take more than 7 days. For major topics like these, don't take more than 10 days. And if again, you can push this to 15 if that is not happening. And in each topic, I mentioned that there are some priority topics. I mean, in each subject, there are some priority topics. So if you think you will not be able to finish the entire subject in the limit of 10 days, then focus on the priority topics. But you shouldn't do this calculation after 7 days. Like you have already spent 7 days in studying a subject, and now now on the seventh day, you're realizing that I won't be able to finish this subject. This calculation you need to do at the start. You need to, before you start studying the topic, you need to make that assessment. So you can check out the previous year questions, you can check out how vast the subject is, and you will all, I mean, I'm pretty sure you would have studied it to some extent, or you will have some idea about the subject. So use that to figure out that if you will be able to do it in X number of days or not. Don't go halfway there and then decide that it is not working. Then you will not be able to utilize the prioritization what I'm talking about. So that's only possible when you do before you start that subject. So that's how you are supposed to study each topic. I mean, in my opinion, it's not something I can impose upon you. Then for the revision part, as I said, don't spend days reading your notes. So for the revision part, Focus on solving questions, focus on solving giving tests. You can use some question bank, you can use the previous questions from IES, or you can use other exam like ISRO, whatever is about the difficulty level of GATE. Then during solving these questions, you will be finding some missing parts, the topics that you don't know. So then you can fill in those gaps. And for the tests, I said start giving tests, and you will need to learn to, I mean, you will need to avoid these silly mistakes.